Okay, hey everyone, welcome to another episode of On the Wrist from Off the Cuff. A really cool review for you guys from the brand Seiko. A little about them: they're founded back in 1881. They are Japanese in origin and have factories throughout Asia. They cover all market segments from entry level to high end. And in terms of the type of watch, this is a dive watch. Some key common characteristics and design when you're looking for a diver. Of course, you're going to want to find water resistance. Typically some type of screw down crown. You're going to find something that's tough, legible, with a dive time bezel, and a diver's extension is always nice if on bracelet. This is their Prospex SJE119 Marinemaster, and is a premium modern reinterpretation of Seiko's original diver from 1965, the legendary 62 MAS. This is actually their first global release to bear the Marinemaster name. At least this line, right? This is a newer colorway release, but yeah, this particular Marinemaster kind of 200, as it's been dubbed, is the first to actually have that in terms of international releases. Typically, this was reserved for premium JDM models. The first Marinemaster was actually a 100-meter SBCN005 Transocean, but most fans will recall the the 6159 Saturation Diver inspired lines that the modern Marinemaster 300 of the 2000s famously echoed. This goes for $2,800 MSRP or $4,200 new from Belmont Watches. Big shout out to Belmont. They're actually who I sourced my SJE101 from, which I'm wearing right now, which is the black dial variation of this. So with all that said, let's go ahead, zoom the camera out, get this piece in hand, and take a closer look. Okay, guys, another huge shout out to Belmont Watches out in San Diego. Thank you guys for lending this piece in and helping me actually secure this piece right here, which I love and still wear quite often to this day. Some of you are already thinking, do I regret the black one and do I wish I had the blue? I'm torn. I kind of love this blue. I mean, I'm a big fan of blue dials, and this one is very dynamic. Like, it's hard for me to capture the level of reflectiveness on this really cool lacquered bezel insert, but the blue that it hits actually plays perfectly off of the mild sun ray that you're getting here on the dial. And this dial is just gorgeous. You see, of course, it does have the planking there across the dial, and so it has multiple kind of levels to it. Some of you might find this watch a little loud. Some of you found even the black one loud. So if you think the black one was a little bit loud and too in your face, yeah, of course you're going to think a brighter blue one with some vibrance and some more color play and tonality to it are probably going to, that might get under your skin. This isn't the watch for everyone. I do cover a lot more about kind of the psychology around the Marinemaster, the modern Marinemaster, as it's known. And of course, there's a newer Marinemaster 300 that's on the way. So that, that case style is still very much alive. This didn't kill it or ruin it or stop it. This is just another exercise of Seiko showing that, hey, they're premium watches. They're creating a differential to say, hey, there's the Marinemaster level, and then there's the standard Prospex, right? And then there's the LX Prospex, which is even higher up. And those are Grand Seiko pricing. So there's a wide array, and again, that's one of the things that Seiko has to deal with. It can be a bit of a disadvantage because they do have such a wide range. There is no cheap variation of a Rolex, right? If you buy the cheap variation of it, it's a Tudor, but it's still Tudor, and people keep them pretty separate. Now, if you get a Seiko Prospex, now that might entail, an $8,000 watch, but it also could entail a $400 watch. So that's where things get a little bit muddier for Seiko, and where they do have to kind of battle against that, where it's a bit of a luxury that other brands, even let's say the Swatch Group, don't have to worry about that, because even though they're all owned by the same group, people aren't necessarily battling I was gonna say Tissot versus Longines versus Omega. They're all kind of kept separately and treated like a separate brand, even though, you know, they do have their same type of class structure, right? Where there's going to be stuff that's more entry level, stuff that's mid tier, stuff that's more elevated. And, you know, the last thing they want to do is make things that kind of compete against each other. And that's why the Swatch Group has been, until just very recently, so guarded about dealing, let's say, Mito or Certina in North America, because then it might cannibalize their Hamilton and Tissot sales. So, I mean, there's always a little bit more to it than just, you know, cash grabs or price gouging, you know, that everybody kind of likes to fall back on and be a victim in their lives. But, you know, that's neither here nor there. Let's get back to this watch. So it has a wonderful 38.5 millimeter diameter case, and it's actually 39.3 millimeters across the bezel, which is great. It only is 12.3 millimeters thick, and it wears this thinness really well. Check out that mid case, beautifully beveled and contoured. And then the case back probably could have been a little thinner, but they decided to go with the display case back, which is nice. So you can see that really cool movement in there. It's the 6L37, which is a really thin 4 hertz movement. So nice higher beat rates at 28,800 vibrations per hour, or 4 hertz, and it does have a 45-hour power reserve, which isn't super competitive today, but there are plenty of watches that are less competitive that cost much more that nobody's really nitpicking either. Getting into the bezel action here, guys, 120 clicks, nice and solid while still being smooth. I mean, that's kind of Seiko's signature there, is that these are really meant to be more smooth than clicky, but it does feel very solid, and definitely, you know, a couple of grades above the feeling you would get from, let's say, a Turtle or something like that, or an SPB type of watch. Now, the nice thing is you still do get that, I just love that they do the shielded lume pip there at 12 o'clock. Also, you're getting this beautifully lacquered steel insert, which does have just a perfect shade of blue to play off of this dial. It's not completely matchy, and I think that is done purposefully. And I think it makes sense, because the dial, you can't have it match perfectly a dial that has gradation in it, right? Like the colors shift on here. So you need something that also has a similar color shift, so that different pieces, different strips, different just glares and angles are going to match. And then others, you know, one part might match one part of the dial, one part might match another part of the dial. So this is a good looking watch, guys. And you know, from, if you're fans of the channel, that I'm big on blue dial divers. Now, it does have these raised indices. It does have that nice plank dial texture. You do get the date at 4.5 right there in between the 4 and the 5 o'clock. You're getting white numerals over a black disc. So this one is not using a blue disc. It would have been nice, but I think honestly the black disc works. I was kind of worried in pictures because I thought that it kind of stood out a little bit too much. But because of the color shift in the dial, you know, there's going to be sections of the dial that are going to appear black, right, in shadow. So even if they would have done the perfect matching blue tone, it would probably visually look black, you know, 95% of the time. So why not just use the same black disc they already had? Now, in terms of the handset, guys, beautifully done hands, brushed and polished, so multiple finishes, multiple facets on the surfaces there. You're getting Seiko Lumebrite. This is a ISO compliant diver, so it does have the right to put divers 200 meters on the dial. 20 millimeter lug width, which is great, guys. You're getting the boxed lugs there, so this is going to go great on a number of straps. You know, I'm partial to the skin diver style on something like a Tropic strap, so that would look great here. Also, so even something more like a sailcloth would look fantastic as well. Solid steel multi-link bullet style bracelet, guys. Slimline clasp featuring 2 positions of manual micro disc. I don't want to undo all of that. Of course, some of the stickers here peeling back more so just to kind of get a look at this and have it articulate a little bit better on camera. But the good news for you guys is that I already own pretty much this watch, right? It's just the black dial variation, so you guys can see. We can jump right into how this lays. Pin and collar construction. You do have this slimline clasp, which is still milled on that folding section and then stamped on the upper push button. And then you do have 2 points of, 2 different settings there. And some people are going to complain, oh, why? It's just, why do they make it small? We wanted it. No. Everyone literally complains about these clasps being too long, and then somebody makes a short one, and then they complain, well, I wanted more points of micro adjustment. You did? Well, you don't need it, because essentially it's only one spot between another, so that you can have, you already have short links, so it's either going to be link in, link out, and then in this spot or that spot, whether it's, hey, you add an extra link and you close it tighter, or you make it a little bit looser and you remove one of the links, right, to really dial it in. It doesn't matter how many spots there are here, you still are going to be able to dial the fitment in perfectly. So again, it's a bit of a moot point, and I think people kind of forget the actual reasons why things are the way they are, and then they just kind of see things as, oh, that's a value add because there's 3 holes instead of 2 or whatever it is. Like the fact is, you can dial it in. It already has a very short length, super well articulated bracelet. This is one of my more comfortable watches, and that, let alone divers, and a lot of that has to do with the proportions, with just kind of the magic that Seiko do when it comes to their case architecture and also their execution, guys. Like, it's quite solid, and it's just nice, right? It's not overly tight, and it doesn't have some crazy super high and it doesn't necessarily need to. This is more comfortable. You have to have some level of give, otherwise you're just going to be wearing a solid chunk of metal. So that is a trade-off that a lot of people don't understand, is a trade-off. It's not, hey, one is 100% better than the other, because if you make it less articulated and overly tight to where, let's say, there's no play whatsoever in here, then you're going to have something that's going to be very uncomfortable. And then, of course, you have too much play, then you're going to have something that feels quite cheap. And, you have to find that middle ground. And I don't mind where Seiko land when it comes to their middle ground on quality and comfortable fit. So with that said, hopefully I gave you guys a good idea of how this will lay, but we can get into some Lume Shots, light transition, and closing thoughts. Okay, let's go ahead and hit the lights here. Yes. So just blinding Lume, really well done, nicely, thickly applied, and of course quite legible. You do have quick referencing there, and you also do get quite a nice amount of symmetry thanks to the date being moved from the 3 o'clock, which I know a lot of people just say, let's just make it a no date variation. Guys, literally not having dates on watches will stop people from buying watches, unfortunately. I'm a big no date fan myself, but overall, in terms of sales, guys, it's just the numbers are what they are. People want a date complication typically on their watch. And honestly, if you're going to be using it as a dive watch, you're going to want to know the date for your logbook entries anyway. So let's just be realistic here. It's not the end of the world. And if you are going to have a date on a dial, I think you either make it a feature and, put it at 3 or 6 and put a beautiful frame around it, or you just blend it and try to make it hide. And in this case, I think they made it hide really well. Look at the blue on here, the play. Again, I'm having trouble capturing that bezel insert there in terms of the blue. Maybe I can just here play a little bit. It's tough. You probably have to be outdoors to really, really see this fully light up. But you know what? There's other channels where you guys can find that footage, or just go online. So you'll have that. But here, what I like to do with the low light transition is really showcase how this is going to look in less than optimal lighting, because you're always going to be, out in the middle of a field enjoying direct sunlight. A lot of times you're going to find yourself coming out of buildings, walking underneath overhangs, or just hanging out underneath the shade of a tree. So it is nice to see what these colors, textures, and finishes render like in less than optimal lighting, guys. And I gotta say, this is absolutely gorgeous. This is probably aesthetically one of the most beautiful Seiko divers, at least modern Seiko divers. Of course, I'm a big fan of the classics as well, but This thing is gorgeous, and I mean, like my SLA039, as beautiful as that is with its blue dial, this gives it a bit of a run for its money, and it's so much more wearable. I mean, that one's a high beat, super thick, you know, granddaddy Marinemaster, but I mean, whew, this is just a good looking watch. So guys, closing thoughts, super wearable and screams quality. It's slotted between your standard SPB and SLA lineups in terms of that being the SJE. Now, in terms of model variants, it's also available in a kind of light versus dark blue setup in the SJE119, so you're going to have like a brighter blue dial with a darker blue bezel insert, as well as that limited edition SJE097, which has the white dial with the steel bezel insert. And then they even came out with this batch, as far as this blue on blue setup here. They came out with this kind of greenish gray dial, SJE117, which also looks really great. Belmont also has that model if you're interested. And then in terms of comparable models, you know, I think this is really well spec'd in terms of being a competitor to Tag Heuer's popular Aquaracer line. And those MSRP for about $28.50, guys, with similar specs. But I also think this is a bit of a spiritual parallel to the Tudor Pelagos 39, and I spoke about that in my original black dial review. Not as much as a direct competitor to the $4,700 diver, but in terms of being, I think, quite a divisive release for enthusiasts. You know, while a clear winner for new customers who've enjoyed the classic aesthetics, but previously held off due to larger sizes, right? I think that's a parallel that it runs with the Pelagos, right? Where people have loved the Tudor Pelagos, but it wasn't until they came out with a couple of smaller variations where that really got people going. But some of those smaller variations did have some trade-offs versus the original, and it, you know, they made them maybe less quirky and more versatile, but maybe also less lovable to a certain extent, right? So I think while some enthusiasts will appreciate, you know, the unique feature set, while others won't be able to get over the omission of certain details that they felt were, you know, key to the Pelagos or the Marinemaster namesake, right? So with that, you know, this is not for everybody. This is not the SPB, you know, variation where it's around $1,000. And I'm just going to say, hey, that's a great watch for a lot of different wrists. I think that this is something that is very particular. But for me, guys, the bottom line is, if this was a slim 39mm Grand Seiko diver, if they just put Grand Seiko on the dial, yeah, it might be 20 to 30% nicer, but it would also cost 2 to 3 times more. So, you know, and that's a thing, right? So there are diminishing returns on the more money you were to spend. But in general, I think Grand Seiko needs to have a diver like this in their lineup in terms of wearability. Very handsome, you know, kind of dressy diver. That does tie back, of course, to Seiko's history, which I think obviously this perfectly does, while still injecting some, you know, youthful traits as well. But if you must have that 6159 aesthetic, right? You still have plenty of other options to choose from, you know, within the SPB range at around 1K with 6R movements, or you can get the SLA line, which are still expanding, guys. They didn't stop. Like, some really cool new SLA Marinemasters are coming, and those are anywhere between 28 to 68 with 8L movements, and then, you know, because there's a high beat options that are still there too. So, or SNR watches, right? Then that line, which includes spring drives, so those are around $5,000 to $6,000. So those exist, right? If you're you know, throwing stuff at your screen saying this isn't a Marinemaster, guys, those watches didn't go away. So they're still available. Go support them. You don't have to hate this watch to support that watch. Just wear that watch if you want it. So yeah, I enjoy those too. I have multiples that, you know, are within that case style. So with that said, let me know what you guys all think down in the comments below. If you liked the video, please like, and if you're not already, please subscribe for more content just like this. And another huge thank you to Belmont Watches for lending this piece in, and just always, you know, being awesome in terms of being an aftermarket dealer. So I appreciate them. I might even be asking if I can trade my black dial for this one, because this one is just too sweet. So let me know what you all think down in the comments below. Thanks, guys.